So what's the lesson of the controversy around this WeWork IPO so far?
Well, there's a lot of schadenfreude in Silicon Valley about this one. It's a company that obviously had very mediocre governance, and it had a very, overconfident might be the nice way of saying it in terms of the founder. And honestly, it's not a company that's really been innovating in areas that most of us tend to care about. It's, there's nothing wrong with financial engineering, but that's a lot more what it seems like it was about. So it's not one that a lot of people here that I know have been rooting for.
So, I mean, how different is this really, though, from Snap? It had some pretty creative corporate governance standards that it presented during its IPO. Facebook, Google before it kind of pushed this founder control from the beginning. Yes, they've taken it perhaps a step further, but is the business model here and perhaps the lack of technology in the way that they run their business the real sin?
I think the lack of technology, at least as it's perceived by people out here, is a big problem in terms of something that's it doesn't really feel like a company of Silicon Valley. It feels like a company maybe of New York in a sense of what they're doing. And frankly, there are some rules that they've violated. These days we won't back a company unless the founder would have to give up control if they were to leave. I think it's really great that he is being forced to make these changes. Give back the money that he got from naming the company. A lot of that stuff seemed pretty silly. So it seems like it is going in a good direction where he is being responsible, and hopefully he's cleaning it up enough that people will tolerate it.
So, Joe, is WeWork a one-off, and I ask this in part based on some of the performances we've gotten from recent companies that have IPO'd just in the last week or so, is investor sentiment changing around some of these private, quote-unquote, unicorns that are now looking to go public?
Well, I think there are two different sets of companies here. There's companies that have grown with just huge amounts of money that they've raised, where it's very unclear what the long-term business model is and how they're valued at. And there's companies that have worked really hard for 10 years to develop a really hard new technology that fundamentally changes an industry and then grown based on that. And I think those companies that work to really have the best engineers in the world solving hard problems that matter to fix industries, the things we're doing here in healthcare, the things we're doing here in logistics and other areas, those are real companies. And I think this one, people are a lot more skeptical about, is it a real innovation?
Right. I mean, there's two different things going on here, Joe. One is the business model itself and the way we would judge it, no matter who they were. But the other is the corporate governance issues that they've tried to remedy, and you pointed that out. Which do you think is truly responsible for the delay of the IPO?
That's a tough question. I think they kind of mesh together. You get something that's very overconfident, that's breaking all the rules, and I think that's part of what's going on too. They're putting billions of dollars to work very, very quickly in ways that it's really unclear to people what it's actually worth. So I think the combination of having a questionable business model with this really extreme governance, that was too much. Maybe either one by themselves, it might have worked out.
Joe, talk to me about the fundamentals, though, of work and the future of work and where people are going to work. It seems like every 5 years there's a different idea about this. Everybody was supposed to be working from home, and then no, everybody was supposed to come into the office. We're agile now. It's urban. Is this going to shift in 5 years? What are you telling portfolio companies, entrepreneurs who are trying to plan their expansion and where they're going to have their employees?
That's a great question. I helped start a company called Terminal that's helping tens of companies in Silicon Valley hire people in Canada, hire people in Mexico. I'd love to hire people here in the Bay Area. Of course, 40% of the land's being used by cattle, so it's too expensive to hire people here because we can't build housing. But, I still think the best way to build a company is all in one place. I think that the way you're going to be able to get, people working from home and working from everywhere is you're going to have even a lot better augmented reality, a lot better ways of making it feel like you're right next to somebody. I think those technologies are coming in the next 10 years.
Joe, I want to shift gears. You have comments coming out of Saudi Arabia right now that they have evidence that the attack launched on Aramco facilities was not launched by Yemen, that it came from the north, was definitely supported by Iran, that they have not only drone but missile debris, that cruise missiles were used in these attacks as well. It's shedding a lot of light on Saudi's weapons systems, including missile defense, Patriot system, which is made by Raytheon, the capabilities that are in place, and whether those technologies can keep up with some of these attacks from drones and the like. What is your take on that? And since you are invested in a number of companies focused on national security, and where is the technology headed? does this increase demand for it?
Well, that's a great question. You know, Silicon Valley was created by defense companies, and defense has not been as a popular place to work on here lately. You know, my friends and I are spending a lot more time trying to figure out how we innovate in defense. There's $780 billion or so we're spending on it in our country, and the defense industrial complex is very wasteful. So exactly, there's new systems we're building out here right now to work on drone defense, to work on how we take out these systems. And it's a very scary world right now, and I think we need a lot more people trying to solve these problems.